Vogue is not meant to give you your daily bread and butter. Vogue is chocolate cake.
How do you decide who's going to be on the cover of Vogue?
They have to stand head and shoulders above their peers. Dimple Kapadia had no interest in being in any magazine, but I had promised myself that we would find a way to do a cover with her.
Luxury is becoming so much more accessible.
If luxury is everywhere, then luxury is nowhere.
How do you decide what story is going to be put out?
It has to be something that stands the test of time. Labubus, for example. I won't put that in the magazine because a week from now, you may be onto something else. Fashion is really, who do I want to present to the world today? I used to get a lot of messages from people saying that, oh, you're my potty time read. And I was like, okay, that's the highest level of compliment for a journalist. Censorship is the death of democracy. I have a wonderful partner. We've been together for 11 years. I have chosen to not be married.
Do you think magazines like Vogue and the others set unrealistic beauty standards? Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Aleena Dissects. Today's episode is very exciting because we're talking about fashion and luxury. And in that, I have to talk to you about what Vogue was to me when I was growing up, looking at it and looking at all these nice fancy things that we want to look at when we want to buy. And so it's become something that is so aspirational, not only for me, but for everybody that reads the magazine and looks at all the work that Vogue does. And today I've got to you Vogue's Head of Editorial Content on Aleena Dissects. Please welcome Rochelle.
Thank you so much, Aleena. Lovely to be here.
So excited to be talking to you and getting an aspect of like fashion and luxury from the back end. Like we see everything live in the front of it, but I'm sure there's so much that goes behind that people don't know and also people don't talk about. So very excited to speak to you about that.
Thank you.
But before we get into all of that, I want to really understand your journey, where you began, how you've come to the position that you are today.
Well, my journey began in Goa. I'm from the Sunshine State, and from the time I was very young, I knew I wanted to be a writer. I was obsessed with reading. I was that kid who had 3 libraries that I would go to, and I was, spending all my parents' money on books and food. But I knew from a really young age that this is something that I wanted to spend the rest of my life doing. And thankfully, my parents were very supportive. So they sent me to Bombay as a young person. I actually was 15 when I came to Bombay to study because I was very clear that I wanted to go to St. Xavier's College and I wanted to learn mass media. And I remember my mom coming and she was like, maybe you should also apply to some other colleges because, it's really tough to get in. And I did upon her insistence, but I was like, okay, it's St. Xavier's or I'm going back home. And it was the best choice for me because that was really where I think my personality was given the, the nourishment and sort of my mind was tickled by everything that was happening. And so I started interning, and it's something that I encourage young people to do all the time when I meet children in schools and when I meet like young people in colleges. I keep telling them like it's not so much about the colleges you go to and it's not so much about who you know, though of course that contributes, but it's really about gaining that hands-on experience by doing internships. That's another thing that my parents encouraged from when I was very young. I used to have summer jobs. My friends would be playing or relaxing or, on video games. And I would actually have like summer internships from a very young age. And I think all of that contributed to me developing a certain sense of confidence, curiosity, and just the desire to do something. I'm always puttering around. I can't really sit in one place. And it just so happened that after college, I got my first job. And lo and behold, the company shut down and I also lost my first job at the age of 19, which is not where you want to be as a 19-year-old. It does not fit into your best laid plans of how your life is going to turn out. But in retrospect, it was the best thing that could happen because I joined the Hindustan Times. They noticed that I had a particularly sarcastic style of writing. So they asked me to become a fashion police columnist.
Okay.
This is all back in the day when you could say this without risk of getting cancelled.
Yes.
And that earned me a certain amount of notoriety because I used to, say some pretty obnoxious things. I hope nobody ever finds these records.
Some of the thoughts you have that you put down early on.
Oh my gosh, I really can't say anything without being cancelled. But I think I would say what people were thinking.
Okay.
or what they wish they could say, and it was just a little obnoxious that I was allowed to do that in a newspaper. But you know how like now everyone's on their phones when they go to the
Yes.
toilet, but like back then, because also
Okay.
I'm ancient, back then they didn't have we didn't
Yeah,
have
we didn't
like
have.
phones in that
Yes.
way. So people would take the HT cafe into the toilet and read the column. So I used to get a lot of messages from people saying that, oh, you're my toilet read, oh, you're my
Oh,
potty time read. And I was like,
okay.
okay, that's the highest level of compliment for a journalist because you're trapped, right? You have nothing to distract you. So if you're choosing to take this into the toilet with you, that means you genuinely enjoy reading it. So from there, I think I got a lot of, as I said, notoriety. And I used to be, also a fashion journalist for the HT Cafe. And one of my mentors, Sita Vadwani, who was the digital editor of Vogue at the time, she discovered me at Fashion Week through these columns. And, and then, of course, that was my first time at Vogue. And now, many years later, 12 years later, it's come full circle.
Wow, that's been a very interesting journey. But I think what stands out is that you would do writing in that time like we do reels today. Like in terms of when you said it was relatable and things that we weren't like people weren't saying, right? I feel like today when you look at those reels and they're so relatable because you're like, oh, somebody thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we're like the same. Oh my God. Like, that kind of a feeling,
Yeah.
which is what you brought about in your writing. Was there a certain style in your career that you realized that you like writing about? Was it sarcastic? Was it critical? What is critical, or was it like analytical?
I think that I've always led with a certain personality in my writing. And when I now look back on pieces that I wrote when I was very young, I can see that it's not something that I've learned belatedly. It's something that was always there. And luckily, I had amazing editors who really helped me find my voice and encouraged me to be bratty, to be opinionated, to say things that could get me into trouble, because I think they knew that developing a style is crucial if you want to become a writer who sort of is recognized and who people relate to. So I was very lucky to have those editors in my life and mentors and people who supported me. So I would say that it's visual. Like I want when you read something, for you to get immersed in the world I'm building for you. So I try and make sure that there's a lot of visual language. I try and make sure there aren't words that would jar you back to reality. I try to put little Indianisms. That's something I learned from my most recent boss, Twinkle Khanna. Like she has all of these, Indian cultural little Easter eggs that she distributes throughout the article, right? And then when you read that, it just takes you back to something that you've actually experienced or something that you've seen. And it also makes it very clear that you are an Indian writer and not just a writer who could be from anywhere else in the world.
Right.
So that's something that I have definitely adopted after having worked with her.
Okay. Tell me, what does a magazine editor do? What all do you have to do in your job?
Oh my gosh, do we have like 10 hours? I say that I'm the chief minion. You may think that it's the most glamorous job in the world, but being the magazine editor or being the leader of a team, it means you first need to know what everyone is doing.
Okay.
You need to have some basic understanding of everybody else's job. Because if you're going to tell someone how to do their job better, or you're going to lead them, or you're going to challenge them, you should know what it is that they're doing in the first place, right? And that has been my career. My career has really been a ground up career. It's not like I entered at the penthouse level. And so I'm lucky to have tried many different things. So I know how to edit videos. I taught myself how to do that. I know how to write. I know how to edit. I'm relatively good on stage. I find myself on stage perhaps more than anyone else would like. And I can do all these different things because I really started at the bottom and had the curiosity to kind of want to learn and do everything. So as a magazine editor, it really starts with vision. It really starts with having sort of the grand plan, of how things are going to go and what is your sort of 1 year plan, what is your 5 year plan, what is the purpose, what is the shaping language, what is the ideology that's going to lead this team. And so it's really a process that feels both lonely and collaborative. What I mean by that is it's collaborative because you're sitting with your team and you're listening to everybody and you're in tune with people's expectations, you're listening to your audience, what they're telling you. But it's also lonely because you have to separate yourself from all of that for you to be guided by intuition and for you to recognize what is necessary, what is not, what is helpful, what is going to drag you down, and find that clear vision and line of understanding, which then reflects in everything that you do. So the other thing is consistency. Like, it's very important for you to be consistent, and whatever it is that you're doing has to, again, reflect across every aspect of what we do. So at Vogue, whether it's the magazine, whether it's the website, social media, any of our event IPs, any special projects that we do, we have a story that's being told every single time, which is the same story. It just has different expressions.
Okay, so if you had to tell us that when you said a 1 year plan is what you work on, for example, and then you put the teams together to be able to create that plan for you, right? So what is, say, you would say today, as of today, for the next 6 months or 1 year, what is something that you focus on and build this whole thing around?
I think for us, what's very exciting right now is we really want to be truly representative of India. For very long, the media industry, because it sits within Delhi and Bombay, and you kind of get trapped in a bubble, right? Where you think what's happening in these two cities is everything that's happening in the country. And then you step outside the country and you go to other cities and you realize that it's completely different.
Yes.
Or there's so much that's new and fascinating and exciting, and there are young, creative people doing very interesting things there, and their worldview is so different.
Yes.
Because they have different history and they have different cultural context, and they've just grown up around different circumstances. So I'm very lucky that I come from Goa, so I already knew that.
Okay.
But I made it my mission this year that we are going to make sure that in everything that we do, we reflect what India truly is, and we reflect the aspirations of all kinds of Indians and people from all over, and age diversity, linguistic diversity, diversity of interest.
Okay.
So that is something that we're actively trying to do within the parameters of what it means to be Vogue. Because at the end of the day, you do have a brand that stands for something, and all innovation has to sit within that natural sort of storytelling.
Yes, I was going to ask you that, isn't it contradicting, because your audience is a more niche, more luxury kind of an audience, and they're used to a certain type of content that they're expecting from you. So if you did it for everybody in India, that would contradict the aspirational aspect of it, right?
No, because I'm not talking about doing it for everyone in India. I'm talking about showing India the way it truly is, both to people outside of the country and to people within the country. So let me give you an example of what I mean. I don't think that the Vogue reader only wants to know about fashion, because Vogue has always been a platform for journalism, credible journalism. It's a platform that invests in journalism. The Vogue reader cares about culture. They care about art. They care about movies. They care about women's empowerment. They care about entrepreneurial pursuits that people all across the country are doing. And that is not limited to Delhi and Bombay. If you go to Kolkata today, as I went in January, there's an energy there. They are people who understand that they have like one foot in the past because they have such a rich and storied history. But you can see this new energy that's unfolding where they're trying to figure out who they can be in the future. And what does Kolkata stand for? I was in Hyderabad a few weeks later, and I felt like a different kind of energy. There's like a pride in their culture, and they're very comfortable speaking their own language, and they're not trying to follow the West. They are bridging that gap. Now, to me, that is aspirational. To me, that falls completely within the purview of Vogue. So what I'm trying to say is that there's so much that Vogue has to learn about this country, and there's so much that the readers of Vogue have to discover through its pages or through its website or through its social media. And that is the attempt. The attempt is, if I'm a reader of Vogue, can I open a magazine and can I be surprised? Like, isn't that delightful? Isn't that really the job that I'm trying to do? Is that I don't want you to think you know everything. And I don't want you to open the book with a certain sense of, I know exactly what I'm going to expect. Can I surprise you? And if I do that, that to me is a job well done.
Okay. Rochelle, what is the difference between an editor and a journalist?
So I hope that all editors consider themselves journalists, because journalism really is a set of ethics. It's a moral code that keeps you from straying too far. So just like doctors have their moral code, or I would say lawyers and accountants and anybody who has a certain amount of power should be governed by a moral and ethical code that keeps you from letting that power go to your head and you going crazy, right? And becoming a megalomaniac. So in that way, all of us who perform the duties of journalism are journalists, and then an editor is just a hierarchical sort of shift, right?
Okay.
And unfortunately, when you become an editor, you write very little
Okay.
because you spend so much time sort of pouring from your own cup into other people's cups, because you are meant to guide people and you're meant to help a story reach its finished sort of product, and you're able to sort of have, as we talked about earlier, a larger vision for how things need to be. And you're able to then incentivize or support or inspire your team to make the job happen. So I would say an editor is like a team leader,
Okay.
and some of that comes with benefits, but a lot of it is genuinely hard work and trying to figure out how to get the job done, which is my favorite part of the
Yeah,
challenge.
but you rightly said you have to be a journalist to be able to be an editor, because after you've written by yourself for so long, you then are telling other people this is how it should be molded or how it can be better, right? Their stories.
You mean the other journalists?
Yes.
Yeah, so the idea is that you're able to look at a story, and it comes to you in a relatively raw form, and you're able to say, okay, cut this, cut this, cut this. It's like us being a sculptor. Like you have a block of wood, or you may even have a beautiful or statue that's already created, but you recognize that, okay, if I took a little bit off here and I took a little bit off there, the final product would look so much better.
Okay.
And I think that's what we apply to journalism. The other thing is that you also have to be the first reader. So you have to be the representative. And it's strange because it's a dual role. You are both the representative of the magazine, but you are also the guardian of the reader.
Yeah.
You are the first reader. So you have to do right by your reader. And for me, that's something that I tell my team. I said the only person that we are technically accountable to is our reader.
Right.
And that's the person who should guide how we look at content and how we fill the books and fill our website and social media.
But back when you started journalism, I feel like had a lot more ethics and value and backing. I feel like today that's changed so much, because anybody who's creating something online or is starting a publishing house is a journalist, right? In some way, because they're talking about or giving news in certain way. How do you differentiate that as of today?
I think I would call those people content creators.
Okay.
Because that's the other thing about journalism, is that we are actually legally bound by by mandates. I mean, we have libel laws in this country. So, and I have my name, for example, on the masthead, which means if like Vogue, hopefully this will never happen. If Vogue ever, does something that requires us to be pulled up or that gets us the wrong kind of attention, like I'm liable legally.
Okay.
Whereas I think the people that you're talking about, someone with an internet connection and a great voice and who's able to gather news and put it together.
Yes.
I'm not sure what the laws are around that. I hope that everyone takes the fact that that news spreads very quickly today, and power is democratized.
Yeah.
I hope everyone takes that very seriously. I would love for everybody to follow the ethics of old school journalism.
But that doesn't happen because there's
Yeah.
so much misinformation now, and there's
Absolutely.
no authority to be like, this is something you're doing wrong.
Yeah. But I think misinformation was always the case. I think we sometimes have a romantic notion of how things were in the past. Information and misinformation has always existed. It's just that now you are perhaps getting assaulted by it at a much higher rate. But I do think then the responsibility is on each of us to do our research, ensure that we are double checking, ensure that we're following credible sources. I don't think we can blame information, or I think that's passing on the blame, right? But if I am somebody who has access to social media, and I have access, as a result of which I also have access to all kinds of information, then I would make sure that anything that comes to me is verified and double checked. I would not cede that personal responsibility and say, oh, I don't know, it just came to me. The whole University of WhatsApp thing, you get a WhatsApp forward, you forward it. I think a little bit of personal accountability is important in stuff.
Yeah. Now that's how to tackle it right now, because I feel like a lot of, for example, the older generation, anything that's coming to them on WhatsApp or on Instagram, they would believe is true. But then now we're giving information to them that, not everything you see is right.
Absolutely. But I see it with young people as well. Like a young person is more likely to believe a YouTuber than they are to believe a journalist. In fact, they get most of their news from YouTube. So I find that even more scary because I would say at least the older generations have other forms of media that they rely on. So yes, they're reading WhatsApp, but they're also most likely reading a newspaper. Not to say that the newspaper is above reproach, but they have multiple sources of information. I would say that really what young people need to think about and sort of do with a certain amount of concentrated effort is ensure that they're not falling prey to clickbait and they're not spreading misinformation. But yeah.
As a user, what I do usually is look up to journalists who are verified and publications that are verified, because only they would fact check and cross check everything before giving it to you. But then again, I'm from the media field, so I understand. But a lot of people don't, which is why I want to give this information. That if you're looking at something from Vogue, the responsibility is on you, like you said, about everything that you post.
Absolutely. And it's gone through many rounds of checking because we have writers, and then above the writers are the section editors, and then there's like a copy editor who fact checks everything, and then there's me, and then it all goes back to the beginning. So like what you see in a Vogue magazine has been edited a minimum, an absolute bare minimum of 3 times.
Okay.
So, and most copies are edited between 5 and 6 times because there's always going to be some back and forth here and there. So that's what I said about Vogue really holding true to the tenets of journalism and investing in it, because you can't do this unless the brand at large believes in journalism, right? Because for the most part, people are like, just get it out quickly, just get it out quickly. Yeah, so we're a little old school like that.
Okay, but my other question relating to this is that nowadays news is out so fast, and the first one that puts it out gets the traction and the engagement and the readership, right? So then how do you handle between I need time to verify, fact check, put this across 3-4 people versus I need the engagement quickly, so I need to post this fast?
Yeah. So luckily, we're not in the business of breaking news in the sense that no one's looking to us to understand, for example, the budget or what's happening in the elections or about any natural calamities. We operate within a space which is, I think, in general, a little slower. Maybe if there's some breaking news related to a celebrity, that might be something that we put out quicker. But we would ensure that we keep the information limited to the facts that we actually know and have been able to verify. And then if we are writing a larger think piece, for example, or we're doing an opinion piece, that will take time. And we're comfortable with that because I'm not in the business of competing with paparazzi pages. We're not in the business of competing with these giant media houses that are about pushing out news. Vogue is more about giving people something to think about, pushing their taste, challenging them to think outside of the box. And all those things take time. And I'm very grateful that our audience recognizes that. And they hold us to a higher standard. So we try to ensure that we live up to that standard.
Yeah, I read the magazine and I know that I'm getting verified news and I'm getting information that is nuanced. You know what I mean? Like it's new and it's like so well thought of, which if you do much quickly, you're not going to get.
Absolutely. Nothing.
You're going to get surface level stuff if you're reading something very fast.
Exactly.
So I think that's what you mean.
With the magazine specifically, what we talk about is that people should be able to read this 3 weeks from now, 3 years from now. And maybe the information is not relevant because it may be old, but at least the piece needs to be able to stand the test of time. You know, that is very important for me because I don't want to publish anything that is hyper trendy in the magazine. We already have a platform for that. That's digital, and there things move a little faster. But we still apply the old school tenets of journalism even to what's happening on digital.
Okay, but tell me, how do you decide what story is going to be put out in the magazine?
I think this is one of the main factors, is that it has to be something that stands the test of time. You know, if I'm able to, if it's too trendy, let's say, you know, there's a particular movement, Labubus, for example, I won't put that in the magazine because a week from now, you may be onto something else. You may be onto crybabies. You may be onto, I don't know, there could be like a whole new
But
thing,
don't
maybe
you think
Pokemon.
Labubus are the new thing and they are
It's
going?
so new that it's going to be old in 2 months.
That's what you would predict?
Yes. Yes, that is exactly what I would predict. Because when there's overconsumption of anything, at the same time, there's a repulsion that gets built. And when you see too much of something within a very short time, because we're so overstimulated as a people, you will start to say, I don't want to see any more of this. Like, if I see more of this, I'm going to absolutely
Really?
lose my mind. So we would cover Labubus on social media. We would cover it on the website. We would not necessarily do a piece about the trend itself unless we were doing a larger piece that would be a think piece on why are we infantilizing people by making everything that's cutesy so relevant again, and why are people spending tons and tons of their money. So it would have to be a larger, deeper
Okay.
thought process,
Okay.
which would go to human behavior, and it would go to what does this say about us as a generation. It wouldn't just be surface level.
Oh.
But there are no chances of Labubu being in Vogue India for sure.
Really? Do you
In the
personally not
magazine.
like them?
No, I have no problem with them. I don't think the magazine is where people are chasing anything that's hyper trendy. I think that's what we represent on the website. That's what we represent on social media. You look really shocked.
Yeah, because in the magazine is how you come to know about what is trending in the first place, right?
No, the magazine is predictive. So the magazine will tell you what's likely to become big a
Yes.
few weeks, a few months from now. But Labubu is right now, right? It's something that broke right now.
Okay.
So why would we put it in the magazine, which, let's say our next issue is July, August. So we have some amount of time already. By then you might be bored of it. By then you might have seen too much of it already. Everyone's talking about it. Your friends have bought it. Like, you're seeing it on celebrity social media handles. By the time it comes out in the magazine, you're like, what's the next thing?
Okay.
So we would stay away from anything that is hyper trendy.
And how do you decide whether you want to create a trend or you should be following the trends and letting your audience know about that?
That's a great question. I think that when something breaks as a trend, it'll usually find its expression on digital, because then we are reflecting what is kind of the zeitgeist, right? What's happening right now. When we create a trend, it is something that we've noticed through research. There's a pattern that emerges, and we talk about it in a way where we don't just put out imagery and we don't just say this is happening, but we kind of try and build the background story of it, contextualize it. Why did this happen? Why did this become a trend? Sometimes it works, sometimes and the thing is that we live in a world today where trends are, I think, attacking us every second, right? So everything has a niche audience that will find its way to it. So in our previous issue, we did a story about why dressing like a 13-year-old, or actually 13-year-olds dress very differently now, but dressing like an 8-year-old is something that a lot of women are gravitating towards. So they're wearing like the big bows, and they're wearing the cutesy socks and the ruffles and the frills and the cute colors. And that came from an observation that was rooted in the writer's own journey of how, for the longest time, she prescribed to other people's notions of what women can and can't wear if they want to be taken seriously. And now in her 30s, she's realized that she can dress however she wants. It's not going to have any reflection of how intelligent she is, or how accomplished she is, or whether she can or cannot be taken seriously. And so you get what I mean? It's not,
Yes.
It's something that we build from research and speaking to people and understanding the human behavior behind something. So it has to mean something more than just consumerism, which, no offense to any lovers of Labubu, but I do feel that that goes into that territory.
Tell me any trend that you did follow and then covered about it and then it became huge. When you say you predict.
Actually, I think that we noticed the rise of the parandi, the hair accessory, the Punjabi hair accessory. So we noticed that, it was sort of glimmers of it across pop culture. And I think we did a story on how the parandi, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, is something that is resurging in modern dressing. And then we had so many people tagging us and so many people sending us photos because they were inspired to,
do their version.
do their
I've
version
seen
of
different
it.
versions.
Exactly. So that was a fun one that we did. I think it's been quite a bit overall. It's this 13-year-old dressing. I think that's something that women feel like they've been given permission now, to to dress however they want and not care. And that is my singular goal in life. It is really to encourage women to take up space and not feel apologetic and not feel confined by how other people perceive them. I think the day we shrug that off, that fear of perception and how will people perceive us, and if I do this and what are the larger ramifications it's going to have, the day women shrug off that unbearable burden, I feel like we will all be so much brighter and lighter and so much fiercer. So
I have a question on that. For
course.
example, let's take my case. Okay, if I'm a 30-year-old entrepreneur in the business field, now I have an image consultant who kind of tells me what is it that would look better on me, because I don't come from a fashion background. What is the clothes that you should wear? Why you should wear those and all, based on what I want to be perceived as or what I think of and all of that, right? So my contradiction with that also was that, should I just be wearing whatever I want, which is, for example, how men in this field and mine wear a black t-shirt, one white t-shirt and jeans, and they are good to go.
All the men in the room are smiling.
Right. And they are good to go like
that.
But for example, I would not dress like I would dress when I was younger. Like you said, because we're in the environment where people need to see us in a certain way, and that also depends on how you're looking and what you're wearing. And also, for example, one of the things that I was told is that t-shirts is something that would not go with your personality, your style, your work. Or for example, I had these things where I would wear like a lot of glitter and shimmer on my clothes when I was younger, and then they said that when you're in your 30s or when you're in your 40s, you wear things that are more less girlier, but still like they were giving me that entire thesis of how to like do this, just because I was finding my personal style also based on it. So would you say that you should walk into a room wearing a jeans and t-shirt in front of a whole big conference if that's how you want to be, or you should dress appropriately according to who you are and where you are?
I have a more nuanced point to make here. So fashion is a language, right? It's a visual language. And language evolves even as you age, right? For example, like the way we spoke when we were 5 is not the way we spoke when we were 15, is not the way we speak when we're 25, right? So just like that, the way you dress evolves. However, if somebody believes very strongly that their style is jeans and a t-shirt, I would not put that person in a frilly dress. I would recommend that they look for an elevated version of jeans and a t-shirt. Jeans and a t-shirt doesn't have to be the same thing that you wore to college when you were 17, right? You could have a particular cut of denim that feels more sophisticated. Maybe the fabric is a little more luxe and has better quality. Maybe the shirt fits you in a way that gives you confidence, makes you seem like somebody who knows what they're doing, as opposed to a shirt that's slouchy. Of course, people wear oversized t-shirts as well, and that's perfectly fine as long as it's supporting your confidence and not making you shrink. If your dressing style is actually an excuse to shrink and blend with the background because you don't want attention, I think there's a larger thing that you need to address. It's not the fashion itself. Fashion is a tool. Fashion is a language, right? So some people speak very loudly, and maybe some people use a lot of cuss words in their language, and maybe some people speak very clearly and some people say a lot. It's the same with fashion. So when I see someone walk into a room, from the way they dress, the fabric that they've picked, the colors, how comfortable they seem with the garment that they're wearing, and how they move in that garment, you can always tell if something belongs to that person. Was it their choice? Was it something that was put on them? Are they experimental? Are they shy? Are they confident? Are they going to need a little bit of encouragement to engage? All these things are as evident to me as if they were to tell me this themselves. Right? And I think not choosing to engage with fashion is also a statement.
Yes, they're making a statement.
Deciding to only wear the same thing every day is also a statement. So if you want to be in charge of your own story, then you have to take a little bit of interest, I think. Otherwise, what happens is that you can be whoever you want to be, and people will perceive you the way they want to perceive you, but you're not the one in the driver's seat, right? And sometimes that might work out well, and sometimes it might not. I personally, as an editor, like to be in control. And I have a clear idea on every day of what I want to say about myself. And I don't necessarily need to say that with my words.
Okay.
I think what I wear can do half the job for me.
Oh, I think of it like when you said you can read people based on what they're wearing, their garment and all. I read people based on like body language,
Yeah.
behavior. So they don't have to say it, but I can perceive.
But body language is
I have-
affected by the way you dress.
That's
If you're wearing something uncomfortable,
Yeah,
you're going
it is.
to, it's going to show. And the other person might think, okay, this person is not friendly, but maybe she's just wearing high heels and she's not like
And it's
comfortable.
painful.
Exactly. Or you might say, oh, this person is looking like, he's not serious about it. But maybe he's just wearing an oversized t-shirt. And what happens when you wear an oversized t-shirt is your shoulders droop.
Yeah.
So you seem like you're just dejected all the time, you know? So
Huh.
clothes have an effect on how we move through the world. Clothes have an effect on how we carry ourselves. Like you're wearing this beautiful dress today, so you're sitting upright. You know, if you were wearing pajamas, you would have sat very differently, I wager.
Yes.
As with me, I'm wearing a particular garment. I want to do justice to the designer who made it, so I'm not going to be sitting like this. You know what I mean? So I think that fashion is not so complicated. People like to complicate it and people feel intimidated.
Yeah.
But fashion is very simple. Fashion is really, who do I want to present to the world today? And that could change. You know, some people have a very particular style. I would say like a Steve Jobs. Mark Zuckerberg's style has changed recently. But Steve Jobs and, maybe a Bill Gates, they had a particular style. And and they gave many, many interviews about how it was helping them
Make better decisions.
make decisions quicker, like spend that time making decisions about more serious things. But I'm pretty sure that there was more to that story, right? Because you could have even that look could have been something else. You don't need to wear a black turtleneck every day. You could have worn a white t-shirt. Even that one item that you choose to stick with and you wear all the time, there's a reason why you're choosing it. And to not invest or to pretend there's no reason, I think it's cute and it's acceptable, but it actually speaks a lot to the person's like their personality, the way they think, the way they want to be perceived, the way they want to move through the world. I would say wear the glitter. If glitter is something that you
But now I do
enjoy,
it in a little more subtle ways or
Exactly.
different places
Exactly.
and all. I learned to work around that.
Exactly.
It's just that when I used to shop, I used to think like, wow, this is looking so pretty or so cute and
Yeah.
so nice. And so I would pick it up and then not see if it's going with my personality. That's something that I learned over time.
Sure, but I would say don't let anyone dim your shine. So if glitter is where it's at, then just find a version of it that feels current to who you are today, an elevated version, as we keep using this word a lot at Vogue. So I don't think anyone can tell you that, glitter isn't fun or glitter isn't, working with your personality. If you enjoy it and if you love it, then of course you should wear it.
Yeah. I saw one Stanley Cup and it was like completely like glossed up and shiny and like, had peacock colors and all of that. And I was like, this is so cute. But then I didn't pick it up thinking that, like it doesn't go with who I want to be. They'll be like, what is this kid with this Stanley Cup? I
know what you're saying, but I do think there's a way to balance that. And I think things that bring us joy, we should not overthink it. And there's a place for the Stanley Cups. Speaking of Stanley Cups, that was the obsession from 3 months ago, right?
Yes.
Stanley Cups were dethroned by Labu. Now imagine if you read about Stanley Cups in Vogue magazine.
Today.
Exactly.
Yeah, then I would have been like, no.
So you get what I mean.
Okay. That's a good circle we filled over there. But a lot of people think and believe that fashion is not accessible to everybody, because if you want to look good or you want to wear good things or you want to, when you look at the magazine also, when you look at Vogue, and you'll be like, these things are expensive, out of my budget, or they're, if you want to dress well, you'll have to pay that much money. That's something that comes to everybody, I'm sure. So like, do you think that it is something that is, because see, if you do wear good fabric, it's going to be expensive. If you do wear good items from good brands and places, they are priced better, right, than your local stuff. So there's always, how would you tell the audiences that are listening to this about how to balance that? Like, is fashion actually expensive?
So I would flip the script on that and I would say, when you go to watch a Marvel movie, do you want to see Tony Stark having coffee? And do you want to see him going to the grocery store? Do you want to see him at a dentist appointment? Or do you want to see Tony Stark and the Avengers take on, whatever bad guy and do fantastical things? And that gives your mind a chance to escape, and that gives your heart a chance to race. And that is the experience of movies, right? Why does that not apply to fashion? Do you want to open Vogue and see something that you already saw, or see something that is as basic that all your friends are already wearing it? Or do you want to see the heights of creativity that human beings are capable of and be inspired by that? And it doesn't mean to say that this is a shopping catalog and therefore you should buy this, but this is what is available in the world. This is what humans are capable of making. And from that, you will be inspired to seek something like that. Or you may be inspired to save up and purchase that at some point. Or you may say that, I didn't know that this was possible. And so I'm going to add a layer of this to my existing style and I'm going to see what it makes me feel like. Vogue is not meant to give you your daily bread and butter. Vogue is chocolate cake with the most decadent ice cream served on the side and maybe something salty to break the taste. So, Vogue is a sumptuous meal. It's not meant to be. In French, there's a term called de rigueur, which means like mundane, every day. It's not meant to be that. It's not meant to be quotidian. It's supposed to be a place for you to be inspired and for you to feel like, I didn't know this was possible, and how cool is that?
Okay. Tell me that we've moved so much to digital publishing. What is something you had to unlearn from writing for the magazine to moving on to digital?
Actually, my journey was the other way around. This is my first true magazine gig because I was a newspaper journalist who then moved directly to digital. So I was doing digital journalism before pretty much a lot of other people were. And I actually had to unlearn the other way around.
Okay.
How do you go from being a digital journalist or an editor who's largely worked on digital platforms to now understanding print? So it was kind of a reverse pedal as opposed to what everyone else was doing, but it's been great fun. I think the difference is what we spoke about earlier, is like what's trendy, what's off the now, what everyone's talking about, that has to live and breathe on digital. But print has to be something that you can relax into a comfortable couch and have your cup of coffee and tune out the world. So the way we write on digital is a little more informative and a little more, to the point. And the way we write in print, it's like, I would draw a comparison to driving. You can either take the fastest route or you can take the scenic route. And digital is the fastest route and the magazine is the scenic route.
Yeah, that's how I would look at it also. That's so nicely put.
Thank you.
Tell me, there's a lot of interest around the Vogue covers. Okay, so we have to discuss, and I have questions on that.
Of course.
First of all, how do you decide who's going to be on the cover of Vogue?
With Vogue, we try to surprise our audience. We don't always succeed because sometimes, there's just those many people who you would put on a cover of Vogue. But I think the idea is that whoever it is has to live a life of purpose.
Okay.
They have to be tremendously accomplished, or they have to be somebody who you can see raw potential in. And so you want to platform them before anybody else does. You want to be the platform of discovery. I think they have to stand head and shoulders above their peers in a way, and they have to have something unique to say. So these would be our prerequisites. And then, of course, you look at things like, is someone coming out with a new project, or has someone just had an amazing, incident that's transformed their life that would help the audience to learn from. So those are, I would say, slightly more timely parameters that we apply, but the foundation is always the same.
Tell me, do you approach the people to be on the Vogue cover, or do they or their teams approach you? That
I think it's a healthy mix of both. So we often have representatives reaching out to Vogue, and if we really want to feature somebody, then we reach out to them. Like my Dimple Kapadia cover that we did November and December. Dimple Kapadia had no interest in being in any magazine. She was happily living her life, icon that she is. But I had promised myself that we would find a way to do a cover with her, and so I begged and pleaded and prayed and whatever else we could throw at the wall to make sure it could stick. And I'm very grateful that she agreed and she trusted us. And that cover was so, so special because it was 14 years since she had been on a cover. It was more than 20 years that she had been on a solo cover. She came in, she gave it her 200%. She was standing in the most ridiculously high heels, no complaints, hair blowing, dimple being dimple, and everyone in the room was just transfixed. We were like, this is what it means to be a star. When you walk into a room and you're not wearing any makeup and you don't have your hair done, and yet everybody's like, wow, there's a presence there that is just remarkable. And she's thoughtful and kind, and she lives in a world that we are not a part of. And it was just very refreshing to see that, and very inspiring to see somebody who has earned all the accolades there are to earn, and yet she came with the energy and the dedication of someone who's just starting out, and she was willing to do whatever it took to get the shot, which I was like, wow. If I can have 50% of that energy at that age, I would consider myself very lucky.
Is that your favorite cover shoot?
I think it's my favorite shoot of what I have been a part of. It's one of, I will say, my very first cover was my favorite because the whole book meant something very emotional to me.
Okay.
But if we are talking purely about cover shoots, it's also because she is a person who is so special, and I also have a personal connection to her through my previous role. So it was something that I felt we needed to do, and it was also very important for me to show the readers of Vogue that we have the kind of diversity that we try to have, right? Like whether that's age diversity or that's any other kind of diversity. And she was obviously being a much older person, though it doesn't
Doesn't
seem like it. And it was very important for us to not put things like, oh, the age issue or the evergreen. Like, why? Like, she's fantastic. And can I please tell you what the most gratifying part of this entire thing is? I've never had more young people, people below the age of 25, who went out to find bookstores and newsstands and take photos of them with the cover and tag me on Instagram. And I was just like, what's going on? I thought this would be a cover that would work really well for people in their, late 30s, 40s, 50s and over. But there were very, very young people who were like, I didn't even know where the newsstand was, and I went out and I found it, and here's a photo. And I just think that speaks to the power of Vogue, and also the power of certain personalities, that they're able to cut across generations and really make an impact.
Why do you think the younger audiences read that more?
Because I think the younger audience today live in a digital world which is ephemeral, which they don't trust, and they have a deep sense of nostalgia for everything that came before. And someone like Dimple is a once in a 3 generation talent, right? She's lived life on her own terms. She's effortlessly beautiful. And she just has a grace and dignity to her that I think is very attractive to men, women, all genders, all ages, or, all species, because dogs also love her. So I think that they saw in her somebody who felt real, someone who had a rich life story, someone who's had a journey. And I think young people are drawn to that because they are seeking icons and idols they can trust.
Right. Tell me another cover that stood out for you in your career.
I mean, I can't not talk about my first cover because that was such a nerve-wracking moment. And so it wasn't a fashion cover in the sense that we weren't looking to impress the audience with these most fantastical pieces. We really wanted to set a new tone for what Vogue could be and what the magazine would mean to people. And I had noticed that for the first time in my life, and this is actually directly from me being appointed the head of editorial content at Vogue, the outpouring of messages from friends, from strangers, from family, from people I had worked with in the past, and they all said, it wasn't just like congratulations. They all said, we're rooting for you. This feels personal. Can I help? How can I make things easier for you? And I've been doing this for a very long time. I've been working for now almost 18 years. I have never felt that sense of sisterhood at that scale before, where people who one would even consider my, I hate the word rival, but peers who belong to, let's say rival magazines or rival media houses, everybody wanted to help and take me into the fold and make me a part of a community. So for me, that was the most important thing to reflect. It was like, who do we stand for? Or rather, what do we stand for as a publication? And so we decided to put together a model cover. We decided that we wanted to have a mix of ages because we wanted that representation to show a mix of skin tone, a mix of even just personalities. And so we brought Meher Jessia, and then we flew Madhu Sapre in, and she was just like, "Why are you even calling me?" And now what's so great to see is that Madhu is doing more work. Like after that, she was in a Masaba campaign, and people had, in many ways, sort of they weren't in touch, I would say, with her. So I knew it was going to be a slow burn. I knew it wouldn't be one of those covers that would go viral or, I also thought people would take some time to understand it, and they did. But what's so gratifying is that even 6 and 7 months later, people remembered the cover, people remembered the message. And that for me was like, okay, sometimes you have to take a big risk and you have to be willing to endure the brickbats in the immediate future for the bouquets to come later. And I think that cover did exactly that.
And why was it so emotional for you?
It was my first. It was something that, I was a baby in the sense that I had never done this before. So I was really being guided by an intuition that I don't know where it came from. Maybe, sometimes you don't know why you know some things. And then you realize it's osmosis. You've just been in a certain environment and you've absorbed things without even realizing. So it is emotional because I was given that chance, and it is emotional because it was very polarizing. And so I also learned to develop a thick skin overnight.
Why polarizing? What feedback did you get?
The thing about Vogue is that people have very strong opinions.
Yes.
About what deserves to be on Vogue and what doesn't. People feel a sense of ownership, which I love. And I don't ever want that to die. So I'm happy with the brickbats. I'm happy with the bouquets. Just don't ignore us. That to me is the worst thing. So people, I think, had great expectations, and you don't always live up to everybody's expectations. And I think we had a lot of people saying that, oh, this is not what we expected. And then we had a whole bunch of other people saying, well, this is exactly what we expected. And so it's quite a whirlwind experience the first time. And then you realize, oh, this is going to happen once every 2 months. So we're just going to get used to it.
Of course, because not everybody is going to. There are going to be people who have different thoughts on every story that you put out, right?
And I love that.
Cover.
Yeah, I welcome it because sometimes from that critique, you learn and you understand how to improve. And that was definitely one of them.
Okay. Tell me, have you ever rejected a story, and on what basis do you reject things to go up?
A lot. We would reject something outright if it doesn't meet our quality standard, or if we feel the person has done this on ChatGPT, for example, and it's not, and that happens shockingly often.
Really? For Vogue?
It happens across the board because I think people have just become a little too used to using AI to what they say is clean up their writing, but honestly, it's not just cleaning up the writing. And the funny thing is, if you see the number of CVs that I do, and if you read the number of raw articles that I do, you will recognize ChatGPT, and when someone has used that. So it's not really a mystery. So I would really encourage people to stop.
Stop.
Yeah, just stop. Sometimes you have to drop an article because things have changed in the environment and you want to be respectful and you want to make sure that you're not, publishing something that doesn't feel right for that time. I think it's mostly that. Okay. Yeah, it's not really anything terribly controversial. It's usually just a combination of these two things.
Tell me a controversial story that you got from maybe your team who wanted to put it up, and then did you or did you not go ahead with it?
You know what's funny is that in today's day and age, almost anything can be controversial. It's so wild to me that people expect their public figures to be perfect.
Perfect, yeah.
But even being perfect is bad because at some point everyone will hate you because you seem too perfect. So sometimes it's the most innocuous things that catch fire because those are the things that are easy to digest and break up and disseminate and turn into controversies. And sometimes what we really, cross our fingers and hope will not become controversial because they are genuinely controversial. No one will read them because it's too
Okay.
complicated a thought process. So maybe like 20 people will read them or 200 people will read them, and everyone else will get distracted by some stray comment that some celebrity made, and taken out of context, it makes everyone angry. So when you ask me what's a controversial story that I rejected, funnily enough, some of the stories that I thought would be controversial and I did reject them were not controversies.
Like
and
what?
something
Give
that
me give me one example.
we've published a story, and it remains to be seen whether this becomes controversial or not. But we've published what I think is a beautiful story on indigenous languages and how, as a people in India, I think India is the 14th most diverse linguistic territory in the world, but we are slowly losing our languages. We're all starting to speak one or two or three languages at the most. So the dialects and all of those beautiful cultural nuances are getting lost. So it is a really evocative story, and it is a story that if you read will either inspire you to go out and learn a language, or ask your grandmother to teach you the dialect of whatever the language is that you speak at home, and there would be a specific dialect depending on where you come from. Or it'll make you angry and it'll be like, why is Vogue writing about this? Stick to fashion, because that also happens.
Okay.
So it remains to be seen whether this story becomes controversial or not. Sometimes when we do interviews, the people in our interviews say controversial things, and, it's their opinion, and we're not here to police people's opinion. And I don't know when we became so sensitive as a species that, we feel like we have the right to control how other people think and what they say.
And we feel offended by everything.
And we're offended by everything.
But that's not on you, right? If somebody else is saying something in an interview and you're putting it out.
But even if I did say it, like, why can't I say it? I don't understand why we are so quick to censor, because I believe that censorship is the death of democracy. Like, you should be able to listen to opinions that you absolutely despise. You should be able to listen to the exact opposite of what you believe, because that's the only way you're going to grow as a person, right? If you want the whole world to bend over backwards to make life convenient for you, then just sit in a little bubble, because that's not the way the world works.
And what is convenient to one person may not be convenient to another person.
Exactly. So we encourage differences of opinion, and we encourage different points of view. Of course, we're not going to be radical and sort of print something that's absolutely not part of what we do at Vogue. But we do like to encourage people to become smarter and be a little more accommodating, which I think as a species, the human race is becoming less and less accommodating. Like, we want everything to be our way or the highway. And there's no place for that really at Vogue.
Tell me that, is there a story that you regretted not publishing? Like, if you said no to it, but then you were like, could have been a good one.
No, I don't think, nothing that comes to mind.
Okay,
let me put it this way. Yes, I do say no quickly. But if there's a story that I feel needs a little more thought and deliberation, I will do that, not just alone, but also in conjunction with people on the team who I really trust. And if I don't have a strong enough take from my own instinct, then I sort of like listen to what everyone is saying and listen to multiple points of view and then make a decision. Okay. So in retrospect, I don't think I've ever regretted not doing a story, because with the information that I had at that time, it felt like it was the right decision to make. Maybe as circumstances change, that decision could have led to a different outcome. But at that time, that was the best decision to make.
Okay. Tell me, Rochelle, about covers. There's a thing growing up, right? We have these body image issues. We have things that are unrealistic, that are put up on covers that we look up to as young girls and believe that this is how we're supposed to look. And what people don't understand is that obviously they are edited. They are photoshopped, and then what you're seeing on the magazine cover is not ideal, but the readers growing up look at it as, this is how I'm supposed to look because it's on the cover of a magazine.
Yeah.
Right? How do you balance that? Like, do you think when magazines like that are putting that on the cover, you're making so many people think that this is what beauty and fashion should look like?
Right. Well, it's not just Photoshop. It's also lighting. It's also styling. It's also makeup. that both of us are wearing today. I definitely don't wake up looking like this every day. I've had my hair done. I think that there is an expectation that everything has to appeal to everyone and everything has to look like everyone. And that's just not possible because there can only be one cover and there can only be one person on the cover. Well, actually, that's not true. There can only be one cover, but we can have multiple people. I think magazines did, for the longest time, have a slightly narrow vision of what could be on the cover and how people should look. And I think that's changed dramatically thanks to a lot of body positive movements that have happened all over the world, including in India. In fact, at Vogue India, we have a rule where we do the opposite. We tell the celebrity or the person who's going to be on the cover, and for that matter, anyone who we photograph in the very beginning, that we don't Photoshop. Like, we will be kind to you. So, for example, if you're wearing a garment which is not necessarily your size, because that happens often enough, right?
Okay.
We source garments from different people, and maybe it's one size too big, or maybe you're a little bit bloated that day, or we will be kind to you in the sense that we will make sure that your areas that you're uncomfortable with are not highlighted. Things are, we play with angles, we play with lighting. But if you have a mole, we will not remove it. If you have a cleft chin, we will not change that. We will not make you taller. We will not make you thinner. I think that we've learned that this is what we need to stand for. And of course, there's a lot that's out of our control, right? Like, the person who's on the cover maybe a particular body type because they're genetically predisposed to that body type. Or maybe they've had a really powerful fitness regimen that's given them like amazing arms and like really washboard abs. But that's them. And I think it's very important for us to also speak honestly about what it takes to look like that.
Yes.
I think for the longest time, people would just be like, oh, I wake up and I drink water and I put olive oil. It's like, no, that's not the truth. You know, you have a rigorous regimen, you have personal chefs, you have, stylists and makeup artists on speed dial. You probably have a wonderful nutritionist who's helping you look the best version of yourself. And that can't all be boiled down to just the way that someone looks on a cover. That's a longer, larger process. And I'm very glad that I think some of the younger celebrities are being more transparent in how and what they're talking about. Many of them are also talking about procedures that they've had done to achieve a certain kind of look. I'm not in the business of judging other people, and we certainly don't want to say this is good, this is bad. And what we would like to encourage is for everybody to apply their own intelligence when it comes to receiving information, same thing that we talked about earlier, right? We would encourage people to be a little more judicious in how they look at images. So when you look at an image, the idea should not be ever. And it doesn't matter whether you're seeing this girl on a cover or if it's your best friend or it's someone that you spotted on the street. It should never be, oh, I wish I was her. It should always be like, oh, I like that about this person. And how can I sort of apply elements of that to me? It's like now the way you're sitting, you're so elegant and you're so poised. But I'm not thinking, oh, I want to be you. I'm thinking, oh, I love the way you sit and I will try and be more elegant and more poised when I, conduct myself, right? I think that ceding responsibility and putting the blame on others, saying, oh, I saw this, therefore I feel bad. I'm not sure I fully subscribe to that mentality.
Yeah, that's what also in a different way I would say to younger girls who are looking at these unrealistic beauty standards wherever they are seeing it and whatever that means to them.
Yeah.
They might look at somebody and say great skin, they might look at somebody and say great body. But one is the transparency that that there's so much gone behind doing something like that. And then you would never be, because that other person is also not like the star of it, like all right, they have their own insecurities going on, so it's not like anybody's perfect, which is why you shouldn't aim to be like another person.
I think we need to really spend time developing our own minds and our own individuality, because at some point or the other anyone will come and make us feel bad about something if we're so easy to upset. So it could be that somebody is smarter than you in school and you're like, but why can't I be the smartest? No, like, find your own lane. I don't think, while I do of course appreciate the transparency, I don't think that celebrities owe us the details of their life. I don't think that they should always tell us everything that they've done, because like, are we being honest with everyone? Are we going around with a microphone telling everyone what we've done? Like, I just went to the parlor, got my eyebrows. Am I going around telling everyone that? No. So I really think that that sense of entitlement that we have over public figures, it's getting a little out of control right now. And I think it's very important for us to develop inner strength and focus more on that and focus more on our ability to make choices that work for us and not constantly chase something that is, ephemeral.
Okay. You spoke about stylists, okay, in the part that we spoke about how they have a team, celebrities have a team and all. Now, I know that stylists are styling the celebrities. So then how can we say that we follow a fashion trend or fashion of a person when it's actually not their own fashion and personal choice?
I don't think it's not their own fashion. I think what a stylist can do for you, and I work with a team of wonderful stylists at Vogue, is they're able to be act like editors,
Okay.
but they're not going to put you in a costume. And when anything that is not inherently who you are becomes a costume because it's not an accurate reflection, as we spoke about earlier, right? Fashion is a language. So if you are speaking in a foreign language, it's going to, in a fashion sense, look like a costume. What a stylist is able to do is help you navigate through all the confusing trends, the excess number of brands that you don't really know where to start looking, and celebrities presumably are busy. They have a lot of things that they need to do. And so a stylist is just another person on staff who's able to help them arrive at something that feels themselves, but an elevated version. That perhaps on their own it would require too much time and take up, you know, a lot of energy that they could better expend elsewhere. So I also am in the privileged position of sometimes having the Vogue stylists help me when I have to pick up a look for some of the events that I do. And it's always a collaboration, it's always a conversation. So they'll say that, hey, we saw this and we thought it was so you. It's never like, oh, you should wear this. And it's something that's totally alien. So they'll say it's so me because they've come to understand what I like, the colors that suit me, the way I move through the world. And they will, I would say, nudge me in the direction of things that align with my basic philosophy. So, yes, they have stylists. And yes, that is not a privilege that everyone has access to. But I don't think that the stylist is the whole and soul of the look. Like a Priyanka Chopra dresses very differently from a Deepika Padukone, who dresses very differently from, let's say, Ananya Pandey. And that is because the stylist is working with the celebrity's personality and their natural sense of style. So I don't necessarily think that they don't have personal style. I think the stylist can certainly help you improve your personal style.
When you look at all of these celebrities, whose fashion sense do you like the most?
I think that I appreciate different things about different celebrities. I think that Sonam definitely has a connoisseur's eye. She can put a look together pretty much on her own, though she has a wonderful support system with her sister Ria. And I love that she experiments. I think Dimple Kapadia, we've been talking about her for a while. No one dresses like her and she doesn't dress like anyone else. So her wardrobe is the most unique. And she has the most incredible jewelry. It's really like it deserves to be in a museum. And she wears it with such flair. Um, what I like about Priyanka is that her style has had many different evolutions over the years, but she always looks very confident. Like I've never seen Priyanka Chopra ever looking underconfident, and I think that that's fashion has to have aided that, right? Like because you can't consistently be so confident unless the fashion is doing something for you. I think Ananya is finding her feet. She's kind of learning what works, what doesn't work. I think Janvi Kapoor recently, she's been working with her cousin Ria, and she's become more experimental, and she has like this like old glam Hollywood aesthetic to her, which earlier she had a slightly different aesthetic. So I think it's very exciting. But if you ask me who's the best dressed person in in India, like from a celebrity point of view, I would have to say Diljit Dosanjh. I think that nobody wears fashion and no one loves fashion and experiments the way Diljit does. I also think that Vijay Varma has a innate sense of fashion. Like he does a lot of his own shopping, And last time we spent some time together, and he was telling me that he was shopping in the women's section because he really enjoys the way that those clothes fall. So he's another incredible fashion sort of brain. So
I
yeah, I
think
think the men are having a lot of fun, maybe too
yeah.
much fun.
And I think what stands out about Diljit is that it just doesn't look like he's putting any effort in his
Yeah,
fashion.
yeah,
So it looks so effortless, like he just threw this on, but I'm sure there's a lot of thought that
yeah,
went behind it. But the way he carries it, it looks
absolutely.
natural.
He's just so confident. I think Diljit is like this bottomless abyss of confidence. If all of us took one little tumbler and drank it, he would still be, completely, there would not be anything missing. He's just so comfortable in his own skin and aware of who he is and what he stands for. And that reflects in everything that he does.
Hmm.
And I think that's what gives other people also permission to be fully themselves, like no one what I did a story actually on dominant men and the idea that like today most of the people on our mood boards are actually men because they seem to be having so much fun with fashion. And I spoke about like Diljit, he is this strong, proud Punjabi man, but he wears his feminine side so openly. And whether that's like from the clothes he wears to the way he interacts with his fans and the things he stands for, I think I'm so happy to have a male icon like that who can be sensitive and who can make fun of himself and who can be goofy, but also be so incredibly elegant. Like, that is not a mix that you see very
Right,
often.
right.
Yeah.
I agree. But do you think the lines between celebrities and influencers is blurring?
I think that celebrities have great influence, and there are people who have become celebrities because they're very talented in a non traditional sense. But I find it very difficult to understand the term influencer because it implies that having influence is a right or a title or a job. And I don't think that's true at all. I think that you can be a content creator, or you can be a comedian, or you can be a doctor, or you can be a lawyer, an interior decorator, journalist, an actor, a sports person. But influence is not something that you can put in a job title. That's my personal point of view. And if your whole sort of ecosystem or your claim to fame is that you are a quote unquote influencer, I personally struggle to understand what that means.
Okay. And if I had to say content creator,
That I can understand because that is a job, right? You are making something. But influencer implies that you have influence. But do you? Is that a right? Is that a job title? I don't think so. I think you have to earn influence. You have to stand for something to be influential. And we have a lot of incredible creatives. Kusha Kapila is someone who comes to mind because Kusha actually started out as a journalist and we were peers. And then she started these sketches, and now she's an actor and she's also has her own company. And she's an incredible example of somebody who this career path would not have been possible 10 years ago, you
yes.
know? But I don't think Kusha has ever called herself an influencer,
Hmm.
right? And now she's a multi hyphenate. She has so many things she can call herself. So I'm always a little wary of using the term influencer because I find it to be a misnomer.
Okay. And what do you have to say to if somebody had to start fashion journalism today as
Hmm.
a career,
Hmm.
what is something that they should keep in mind?
That it is a difficult job, and it actually is a job. It's not like waltzing into a shoot or getting whisked off to, say, Lake Como and hanging with celebrities 24/7. Most of what we do is very, very job like in its mundanity. It's like sitting in meetings and talking to teams and traveling to meet people and interviewing people and learning and running around from one fashion show to the other in a very non glamorous way because you have to like really do a lot in a short period of time. So I think that I would really like to disabuse people of the notion that fashion journalism is easy or that it's about just looking good and wearing expensive clothes. In fact, that's possibly the last stage. There's a lot of actual work that goes into it. So be ready for that. Be ready to be challenged. Be ready to be surrounded by personalities who are big and are comfortable with being big and will push you to be a better version of yourself. So resilience is something that will come in handy. Seeking feedback and being comfortable when you get it is something that will come in handy. Doing as many internships as possible so that you can learn on the job. And just be curious, like ideas come from everywhere. So you don't need to go to a particular college or need to be from a particular family or need even to be from a particular city to make it in fashion journalism. In fact, our one of our stylists, Manglian Gangte, he is from the Northeast, and he's definitely not from an established fashion community background. I'm from Goa. My parents have no idea about this world, and I'm the head of editorial content at Vogue. You really have to be ready for that long, long journey. And oftentimes, when I speak to young people, they'll ask me, like, how can I be recognized by Vogue? How can I get my articles published by Vogue? And I'll be like, do you have you started writing? They're like, no. I'm like, so you're already thinking about the last stage. Like, start. Just start. Start with what you have. Focus on the work. Focus on improving yourself. Like, where and how it should appear and the accolades that you get, that all
That's
comes
much
later.
later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to remind them that it's taken me like 18 years to get here. This was not like, this didn't happen yesterday. So be ready for that journey. You have to put in the work.
And tell me, who is your ideal Vogue cover? You want somebody on the cover.
Diljit Dosanjh, I guess. No, I'm deeply fascinated by people who live life with a outside sense of purpose and are able to balance multiple aspects of what it is that they do, right? And Diljit is obviously one of them. And we would love to have, sports people more sports people on the cover and like really champion um, India's sporting community, which I think they have so much potential and maybe not enough opportunity. Um, and then I would like to surprise myself, maybe. So we'll see. We'll see who we have on the cover soon enough. Maybe somebody who nobody knows. Maybe a writer. Maybe we just do that and see
That
what
would be
happens.
cool. Also, that would be different, right? For us
Yeah.
as an audience.
Yeah, we'll circle back when you ask me about polarizing. I'll come back to you and say like what happened when we put a writer on the cover.
But that would be fun. That would be interesting.
would
We want to
agree.
know about them and their lives also.
I hope so.
Because that's changing a lot, right? From like celebrities,
Yeah.
we're moving to all these people that we're looking up to.
Absolutely.
Earlier, it was only Bollywood and celebrities.
Maybe.
I want to know how come wedding trends are so much and so often seen now as opposed to 10 years ago.
I think it's the same as with everything else. It's that you are seeing a lot of everything. So what interests you is what catches your attention. And also because when people say that, oh, everyone's talking about this, it's like, no, your algorithm is showing you everything about this because you have shown interest in a particular subject. I don't think weddings is new as opposed to 10 years ago. I think weddings in India have always been kind of the biggest moment for many people. In many cultures, that's one of the rare times that women are really celebrated and women are really given the freedom to feel like the center of attention. And after that, they go back to their mundane sort of everyday lives. And so Vogue has always been a big voice in the wedding space and one of the most, I would say, valued publications when it comes to teaching people about what's happening in weddings. People also love to be featured in Vogue because we do feature brides outside of the whole celebrity space. So this year we're kind of really doubling down on weddings as an area of our expertise. And we have this massive event coming up called the Vogue Wedding Atelier, which is going to bring together India's top couture designers, some of the most exquisite jewelry that you've ever seen in your life. Like, honestly, I'm so excited to see that. Wedding services and beauty from all of the top beauty brands. And it's going to be a really immersive experience, just the top of the line luxury. And we're working very hard towards it. So hopefully we'll be able to deliver.
I love the Vogue events. There's so much in Vogue, like you say, no? So we see them all the time. So
Yeah.
looking forward to this one. Looks
Thank
like
you.
it's going to be standing out.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Anything that you do at the events IP that is so interesting and stands out from what you see on digital and in print?
I think what we encourage people to do, first of all, is to put their phones away.
Okay.
And we want them to be fully present and we want them to really connect, because what I have come to understand is that most people now think of events as homework. I go there and I have to take photos and I have to do this and I have to do that. And because we just want people to enjoy themselves, we realize that people actually love coming to Vogue events and they oftentimes stay later than the Vogue team. Like sometimes we're like, guys, we gotta go home. We're done. Can we please leave? But I think it's because we try and make sure people feel welcome and we try and think about the programming from the point of view of if someone is putting in the effort to attend an event when everyone has so many demands on their time, I want to make sure that they feel welcomed. I want to make sure that the time they spent with us was interesting and they felt like it was worth it. And we also run it like a military exercise. We like put people, we make sure that every guest has a point of contact so that they don't have to wonder about anything and that person is constantly in touch with them. And we also start on time and end on time no matter what happens.
Okay.
So I've become a bit notorious for insisting that even if there are 20 people in the room, we will start because we have to respect the 20 people who showed up on time. And so thankfully, people have
I'm sure everybody
understood
now
that.
would
And
come
now,
on time.
exactly. So now after 1.5 years of doing events, people actually show up before time because they say, no, you guys always start on time. So we want to
can't
make
miss
sure.
it.
Yeah. So I think that, yeah, maybe starting on time is one thing we do that perhaps nobody else does. Yeah.
Okay. Rochelle, I have to end this with asking you about luxury because there's so much different opinions about it, especially now because we live in like this digital world. We look at luxury as something that is kind of unattainable, something that's larger than life, those kind of things, pieces, prices, right? I want to ask you that now today luxury is becoming so much more accessible, so much more seen and heard everywhere. Then I feel like that takes away from luxury.
Yeah.
Not just that, even when you talk about celebrities or you talk about influencers, I feel like the whole thing about a celebrity or an item of luxury is that the regular person does not have access to that person or that thing that they're wearing. So now if it's everywhere, doesn't it take away from being luxurious?
Absolutely. I mean, I think when one of my interviews recently went viral for me saying that if luxury is everywhere, then luxury is nowhere. I do think that the definition of luxury will change. I think today, what people consider luxury is good health, because it is not easy to remain healthy in the world that we live in, and it requires tremendous amounts of investment. And it requires access to places that not everyone has access to food that not everyone has access to. I think luxury is also getting to spend time with the people you love, because again, you can only do that if you have other people kind of stepping in and doing the parts of your daily routine that will take time away from you, right? I think luxury is increasingly becoming experiences where people want to experience something that no one else has access to. I don't think luxury anymore is limited to bags and clothes and phones and cars, because you can save up and earn enough money and buy, let's say, a bag from a luxury brand, but there'll be another 1,000 of them made. And that's like, I'm honestly, it's not 1,000, it's way more than that. It's probably like 20,000. So when we think of luxury, we think of something that is not accessible. That is the basic definition of luxury, right? And I think that what we perceive as luxury today is changing. It is about experiences. It is about being healthy. It is about having time to yourself to make choices that, you wouldn't otherwise be able to make. And for me, the greatest luxury in the world is freedom of choice, or at whatever illusion of choice we have, but to be able to choose. And so that's what we try and do at Vogue. We try and tell you about all the choices that are available to you. And then you exercise the freedom to choose what works for you. And that, I think, is true luxury.
What is something in your life that you have chosen that is different from ideally what you would have to do?
Ironically, as somebody who has been surrounded by weddings from a very young age, because my dad was also a master of ceremonies for weddings, and I myself compared weddings when I was a kid. And now so much of what we do at Vogue is wedding related. And I'm a great bridesmaid. Okay. I'm really the person you want on your team because I know exactly how to handle all those situations. But I have chosen, and I think this is a luxury, to not be married. I'm turning 37 this year. I have a wonderful partner. We've been together for 11 years. We share a cat, Haiku, who is definitely up to no good as we speak. But for now, I have chosen the freedom of living in a partnership. And the reason I did that is because I do feel it really speaks to the commitment that we have to each other, that we wake up every day and we choose to be together. And there's no external force on our relationship, or there's no document that we've signed, and there's nothing complicated that will need to be undone if we so choose to move in separate directions. So to me, it's a very powerful choice that I don't have to be with this person and they don't have to be with me. And yet, every day, through the good times and the bad, we choose to commit to each other again and again and again. So I think that that is both a luxury and a freedom and a great responsibility, actually.
I think it's very powerful because I wish more women could do what they really feel like. I mean, we're so even afraid of saying something like
Yeah.
that, that we feel like, it'll put us in a box and then maybe what will everybody think? And
Right.
if you're talking about giving voices to people and to stories, if you do that for yourself, it's an inspiration to everybody else to follow the choice that they have.
Absolutely.
Now, right and wrong, we don't know. It
There's no
depends
such
on the
thing. Yeah.
person and depends on the situation. But I think just the freedom to be able to, as a woman especially, to be able to just, this is my way and this is how I'm going to do it,
Yeah.
and it's okay. That's very
Absolutely.
inspiring.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I had a great time talking to you, and I'm glad that you could give us so much information about behind the scenes of what you do. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I hope it was fun.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for watching another episode. If you have any thoughts, please leave them in the comments below. I will see you in the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe.